Welcome everyone on the call today, and thank you for joining the Rewards Mastermind. We're going to be talking about whether I guess the big purpose of why we're here. The Rewards Mastermind is to think of those new trends that are coming out in the compensation rewards area for the purpose of creating workplaces where people thrive and employers can be able to reward effectively and so that their customers love their products and services that are coming out and so forth. So a lot to that. So to begin with, the host, we don't have Heather. She's not here today. She's busy implementing systems and so forth. But we have Howard Niswitz here today. He's a reward strategist here with CompTeam. And Howard has over 25 years of experience. And Howard and I worked together at Barclays for a bit. He's been at JP Morgan and a lot of other places where he's gained experience. And then myself also have worked at, I have over 20 years experience and worked at, McKesson and ADP and BlackRock and have spent the past about 10 plus years doing consulting for small to medium-sized businesses in the technology and biotech and financial firms and so forth. So I really love that. So today I'm going to introduce you to Bella here, and we're going to be talking about preparing for a successful year-end process and what that looks like and how things have changed in the past few years on this front. So Bella, is very accomplished, over 20 years of experience. I know, Bella, you've worked at BMO Capital Markets, RBC, Royal Bank of Canada, Manulife, and CIBC, Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce. So a lot of experience there. And I also see that you are the chair of the board at Her Evolution, Toronto. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What is that?
Yeah, absolutely. I started my work in Revolution about 2 years ago, and with that, I'm now chair of the board. Really grassroots organization started by Doña Ansel, who's the founder and CEO. She's got a very interesting background. What attracted me to her cause was that she herself had a very challenging experience when she came to Canada from Romania. She committed to helping individuals from underserved communities. So these are individuals that don't have opportunities or exposure to, let's say, networks or even job opportunities. And with that, she wanted to do something about that. So our mandate at Her Evolution is to make sure that we reach out to these girls in underserved communities to give them opportunities to explore a career in STEM. So with that, we've been really successful over the past couple of years. We're in tremendous growth as well, but it's something that I love to do in terms of giving back and volunteering. I'm very different from what I do in my regular job too, as well. So it adds a bit of variety to what I do. So I'm really.
That's great. I mean, I know that even when we're talking about compensation, it's part of definitely technical and so forth. Matter of fact, if you ask a lot of comp professionals how they got into this role, I mean, and they kind of fell into it, right? I mean, there's a lot of it's not a selected career track often, so it's great that you're really supporting the STEM and encouraging people to, especially young women, to get involved in that practice. So yeah, thank you for doing that. That's great. So one thing I just want to talk before we get started about is just a little bit about this forum and our format here. I know we have right now we're broadcasting live on Zoom, and we have the Zoom participants that are coming in live. And so you can go ahead and if you're on that platform, you can go ahead and ask questions through the chat box there, and we can get to those and bring those up during the discussion here. So please use that functionality, and we'll bring your questions right to Bella. And then also those that are on other platforms, because we're broadcasting live on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and YouTube. If you happen to be on one of those platforms, feel free to also put your comments in the chat fields there. We'll come back and visit those at a later time if you have some questions, and so feel free to do that. All right. So so Bella, I know you have a lot to talk about today. So tell us a little bit about what's going on with with CompTrak and its clients, and how they're helping clients prepare for that year-end process? I mean, what are a lot of companies thinking about right now?
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, CompTrak is a compensation technology company. With that, we like to, our motto is we like to simplify compensation management. So with that, with our platform, the company is about 8 years old, co-founded by Perry Duty and Lassie Silligren. We're based in Toronto. Right now, we've got a team of 25, and it's a mix of technology and compensation consultants type individuals. So it's a very interesting mix. We have about 35 clients and counting. We've been very fortunate over the past year to experience some really good growth. And we support collectively over 1 million employees across various industries. And those industries include natural resources, finance, healthcare, retail. So really the full gamut. So with that, we have we're in a really interesting position because we're able to get sort of a really good bird's eye view of what's happening in various industries. And to your earlier question, what's happening or what they're looking for right now, obviously over the last year. And so it's been a time of really immense change, and it's forcing a lot of individuals or a lot of companies to take a look at how they're delivering their HR services. With that, I'm sure that everyone everyone that's attending is probably, looking at a lot of or reading a lot of white papers, or maybe attending a lot of seminars with regard to sort of the digitization of HR services. So with that, again, over the last year, we've been pretty fortunate because we are part of that space that we've been experiencing a great interest in terms of how do we go about automating or digitizing some of our services, be it compensation, be it total reward statement. I mean, we'll obviously talk about that a little bit more during the session, but with that, that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, no, what I like is we were talking about CompTrak as a good blog as well. I think Perry just released a great article. And then also, Howard, weren't you telling me about a CompTrak got recognized just recently as one of the top software companies for compensation?
They've been getting a lot of recognition as a top software company. Bella, maybe you want to tell the folks a little bit more about that.
Yes, I mean, we're really excited about being recognized. I think with that, over the past couple of months, we've been recognized in various different forums, G2, HR Tech, with that. And it's really a testament to our clients, because our clients are actually providing some really good reviews. And with that, they're trusting us with their, compensation process. And with that, they're letting everyone know that, or letting those folks know that they're really happy with the tool that they have. So with that, G2 and a couple of other sort of surveys have been put out, and with that, we've been pretty pleased and happy to be ranked among the top 10.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So Bella, tell us how has things changed over this year? Are you seeing some trends in compensation software and so forth? I know, given the shock of the pandemic, I mean, there's of course remote work and these topics that we've been talking about for several months now. But what have you seen? How has that impacted your tool, and what are companies doing differently than they were doing before?
Yeah, I think right now we're seeing a lot of interest in the total reward statement. And with that, one of the reasons for that is because that's probably an area in which you get the broadest and probably the most immediate return on investment for your employees, right? There's a lot of upside with implementing total rewards for the investment that you're putting in. And of course, it's so versatile because when you have online statements, you can include all sorts of type of messaging, which promotes your branding, your corporate culture, your mission, but also very importantly, it's to really just be transparent with your employees, which is, I think, what employers or people are looking for right now. I mean, the pandemic has really changed what's important to them, right? Right. So with that, we're seeing some of that or a lot of that in our clients and individuals who are reaching out to us.
Right, that's a good point, because some of our clients, what they've done is some that are held off on doing pay increases because they were doing other types of rewards earlier, such as bonuses to help people through the pandemic and so forth. And so, and of course, they want to make sure that this is understood in its full context. And so the reward statement was something that that can easily communicate that in context. I mean, you're not just doing salary and your bonus and stock, but you also have those spot awards and then also those new benefits that were brought in as a result of this past year. I mean, it's good to ensure that your employees remember and recognize that that's something that they're was brought to them by the company.
Absolutely. And it even extends beyond that, whereby, now because most of us are working from home where we can, and we're so dispersed, the company or the leadership has recognized there's an opportunity to include their messaging in there. So what we're seeing and what we've included in some of the statements for our clients are videos from the CEO or from, top management, links to health and wellness type providers, right? So, and of course, to your point, you'd mentioned that there are a couple of other sort of awards that are provided. A lot of companies now are considering what are some of the work from home sort of awards that we can offer or accommodations. Let's highlight that, because we really want to be very transparent and really let employees know the true value of their employment with us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Really...
I was going to ask, so, let's say an organization is thinking about implementing a software solution. What do they need to take into consideration? How do they get started? What's been your experience with that, and how can you help people with those decisions?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because throughout all the implementations that we've been involved with, there's 3 or 4 key things that keep popping up. If you are thinking of technology, implementing any type of technology, be it new or perhaps enhancing, I think one of the key things that we see a lot of our clients really having issue with, or we experience as an issue, is data. Data needs to be clean, data needs to be sort of consistent. And it's interesting how in any organization, whether you're small, medium, or large, you've got data, you've got individuals using data in various different ways. They're interpreting it different ways, they're applying it different ways, and you don't know that. And the thing about technology is those types of nuances really get fleshed out when you automate it, because technology drives consistency and structure, right? So that's what I would say. When you're thinking about technology, think about not just, and again, this is just, when I focus on specific things from a business point of view, it's having your data in order and having your processes in place and having it consistent. But more generally, in terms of, okay, well, what type of things are you looking to accomplish with your HR technology implementation? Are you looking to drive transformation? Mm-hmm. Are you looking to simply automate things? And depending on the answer to that will drive the scope, which obviously drives the timelines and the resources and the time and the money associated with that, but also will drive how you communicate that change to your employees. So there's a whole bunch of things involved in that. Mm-hmm. It's interesting because I've worked with clients where, they have, put a lot of thought around technology and implementing that. And with that, they have a whole slew of individuals, from change management consultants to project leads to subject matter experts. Obviously, it's for those organizations that can afford and have those types of resources. But for the small and medium type organizations where they don't, you have one person holding many hats, right? Mm-hmm. So, it's really just working with them to make sure that they're keeping their eye on a number of different aspects. Just say, have you considered this? Have you considered that? That type of thing.
And what's one of the biggest challenges? I know firms always say, well, how fast can we implement? And a lot of times it does come down to what you just said. It's like, well, what state is your data in, and what are your processes? And then you start going, oh no, our data is not in a great shape, and we have it in 10 different places.
Yeah.
So how do you help organizations get to the point where they can even think about, consolidating the information and getting it automated?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, right? I mean, that is a pretty heavily loaded question, but I'll say that for those clients and for those individuals who would like to implement that have some of those issues in place, unclean data or privy processes that are not fully baked, I would say, well, let's start off with the basics, right? Mm-hmm. Let's try to automate something. Start off with the basics so we can get something in there, and then with that, My whole idea is that you live with it for a cycle, or you live with it for a couple of months, or whatever that cycle timeline is. And then from living through that, you're able to incorporate, okay, this is other features we need to work with. It's like when you actually move into a new place, and you have no furniture. You don't want to buy all your furniture ahead of time, right? Because you don't know if it's going to fit into the house. You want to live in their house for a while and just see what type of furniture fits, right? So, and then you can buy selectively as time goes on. If you want to use that analogy. But.
I'm living it now.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, I know that but that's right. I mean, because I think one of the biggest issues also is introducing too much too fast with your executive and leadership team and managers out there. I mean, would you say that bite-sized type of changes is often, more successful?
I do, yes. Well, I mean, they're to your point, they're bite-sized, they're more digestible. So when you're trying to communicate that change to everyone, you don't have to worry about communicating a broad, sort of broad-based change. And although, change, and there's a really great sort of cartoon I found that I'd love to, I should have clipped and shown it, but there's a great cartoon where people say, yes, I'm all about change. I love change. And then you've got a whole room of individuals that concur. But when you say, okay, well, we're going to change, we're going to go forward in this direction, there's only about 20 or 30% of individuals that really truly subscribe to that and go forward. The rest, even though they say they love change, they really don't. So to your earlier point, when you're going, or question, when you're implementing change in a bite-sized way, I think it's more digestible. So.
Well, could you tell us a little bit more about I know you have some stuff to share with us, Bella, but as far as the process of, I mean, I think you have a process on a standard year end and how we go through about that. And also just as we get started with that conversation, I mean, some companies are going to, a biannual type review or twice a year or even quarterly at times. I mean, are you seeing a big trend toward that area, or is it really mostly still annual?
Yeah, we're seeing a whole slew of different cycles. I mean, we have clients that have truly year-end processes, and year-end doesn't necessarily mean calendar year-end, but whatever their fiscal year-end is. So that could be anywhere throughout the year. And then we have a number of clients that use our tool year-round because their compensation cycle incorporates a number of different sort of activities and events throughout the year, be it market surveys, be it sort of analysis of those surveys, be it other types of sort of reviews, be it job position reviews that affect compensation, pay equity analysis, that type of thing. I mean, that's another big thing coming up too as well, right? So we're seeing that throughout the whole year. So while we traditionally, it has been sort of a year end and contained to, let's say, 3 or 4 months within a particular fiscal year, at the end of their fiscal year, we're seeing more and more now, the tool being used on an ongoing basis.
Oh, ongoing, just and open all year round?
Open all year round, definitely, and open to a number of different groups as well. So it's not just HR and compensation experts that actually look at the compensation tool. There's also finance. We have clients that have their finance group look into it because obviously they're managing sort of, the bonus pool, the merit pool. And of course, with those that have the equity module with us, they're managing a lot of that as well in terms of the share ownership requirements, that type of thing. And of course, especially in financial institutions, as we're all aware, that have experience in that industry, it's highly regulated, and there's a lot of regulations and guidelines that pass through depending on where you are geographically. So it's using the tool throughout the year to respond to those types of requirements.
Okay. Well, you mentioned, of course, HR and the comp group, and they're also finance, and what other groups are using this tool as well?
I find legal too as well. Not to a large extent, though. It depends on the organization, because you have some clients. We have a couple of clients that have what we call annual attestation. So with that, you have sort of comp plans that you can attest to on an annual basis. You have NDA agreements or what have you that they figured, well, it's nice to bundle them together with the comp plans because it's annual attestation, right? And it usually works for those companies and clients that don't have another tool to do that for them. So with that, they centralize it within our attestation feature. But with that, I find that legal, finance, payroll, obviously, and that's part of HR if we want to talk about that. We have even some operational groups as well that actually need to use this, our tool, to glean some information from it. So some financial information from it. So a number of other uses and user groups other than just traditional HR.
Right. Yeah, I've also heard of recruiting having access to tools like this to be able to understand what the pay ranges are throughout the year when they're crafting offers and so forth, so they don't have to always rely on comp to get them the information. And do you have some clients that do that as well?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, absolutely. Because really, when you think about it from recruitment through to when you onboard an individual and actually put them on payroll, there is that sort of continuity in there, right? With the pay range. You have individuals out there recruiting, and they have their pulse on the beat there in terms of, okay, well, what are the ranges out there? Because they're talking to individuals. So yes, you're right. You've got recruitment that's actually using some of that information as well in order to particularly when it comes to pay ranges.
Yeah, it's great to see that these tools are being used much more broadly across the organization, because I remember, Howard, when we first got access to these tools many years ago, it was, basically just centered around the merit process or something, like that. And it was open for maybe a few weeks out of the year, and then, it's closed and put on the shelf, and then you would go through a redesign, but having a living, breathing system that is open all the time and can be used by different parts of the organization is it seems like a much better cost-effective way of going about the whole process.
Yeah, we're even seeing some of the information that's traditionally housed in other modules within talent management systems. Let's just say, for example, performance management. You have some of those measures that are brought forward into the online statement, because individuals can go in and actually see, okay, well, this is my compensation for this quarter, or this, these 6 months, or what have you, and that's banked against sort of my performance that I've done over the past half a year. And with that, it actually serves to provide a really good sort of checkpoint and communication to individuals to say, well, this is your compensation. This is how it's tied into your performance. Mm-hmm. Not to say that it takes the place of any conversation, but it's a really good sort of forum or tool so that employees can actually go in and see and refer to it whenever they need to on demand, right?
So yes, so you have both a manager side and an employee portal as well on your tool?
That's correct. Absolutely. Yeah. So great. We do.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, it's been, I think, as we flush out and actually look at some of the things that they use, because we do look at that, we do monitor, well, what's important to them, right? So with that, and what we're seeing right now is what we mentioned, just in terms of, well, let's bring in some performance measurements in there and bank it against the compensation that we're going to profile in their compensation statement or online statements.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say I'm sitting in a compensation or HR department, and I realize all the pain and suffering associated with spreadsheets, and I want to gather support and get people on board. How do I do that? Often compensation is the stepchild, and it's like, well, things are working, and they can't get the funding or the support. How do you see organizations that have done it successfully go about it?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to great sponsorship, at the various levels, and individuals who are decision makers and have sort of a broad sphere of influence that can influence the key folks to make that decision and have all those spreadsheets that people are working in to be consolidated into one system. And it's so worthwhile, because with that, and I can just speak to the time when I worked for, just going back, although I've been at CompTrak for the past 2 years, I actually known CompTrak for 8 years. I was working for one of the top financial institutions in Canada in their capital markets area, and I was responsible for leading a team to implement CompTrak there. So that was my introduction there. So in addition to working with clients now implementing CompTrak, I was also at, sat in everyone's chair to say, this is how it is, right? So on that note, before CompTrak came in, we had a number of different owners of different spreadsheets in different formats. And to your point, Howard, so incredibly painful because the need was to consolidate all of that into one format. And yet when we introduced to them the ability to say, look, let's use this format so we don't have to worry about this consolidation. No, they were very married to their format. So with that, how do we go about getting buy-in so that we were able to implement CompTrak? Well, we had to obviously source out the key stakeholders, and those are the individuals were very influential, and they were our champions. And what happened was they made sure that they had the time to speak to the various groups that they need to speak to clear any of the roadblocks that we experience in seeing this through. I think when we actually talked about how important and also how beneficial it was to consolidate that information, because it was a security play, right? There was also sort of a resource play at that. They were thinking, well, this is what's in it for me. So really, that's what you need to do. You need to sort of communicate that message, especially for those individuals that, may be influential, but perhaps not really interested. What's in it for them? And when you couch it that way, they obviously are saying, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. And you're able to move them over to the area where, they will be engaged and will be able to perhaps maybe become one of your better advocates.
Yeah. To be really clear, I mean, for our listeners, I mean, Howard was talking about the ideal people to have to help carry the recommendation. You mentioned they have a good sponsor, a stakeholder, those people. So like when you're getting ready to you get an ideal client on the call on your side, I mean, who do you think it should be on that call? It's for you to say, oh yeah, everybody's in the right room, to hear this discussion.
Yeah, usually when we do have that reach out to everyone, it's usually the appointed project person or point person that we have. So when we talk to them, we ask them, well, who are those stakeholders? I mean, that's why it's the importance of great stakeholdering, which I think is really, really key. And what that is really taking a look at everyone that needs to have a part and a say and a voice in this initiative, whoever that may be, from the executive sponsors to what we call the functional leads, be the HR representatives, maybe the finance representatives, because they have a say in this, procurement, legal, anyone that you think that needs to be part of this, especially when irrespective whether you're, implementing technology or perhaps maybe just, making a change, you need to make sure that the right stakeholders are in place. And with that, understanding how you work with them and what their influence and sort of interest level is so important, because when you do that, you're able to understand how you can reach out to them and, and make them your advocate, make them your champion, right? So
I imagine there's usually, I've come across this a couple of times where there's like one person in every organization that they're saying, oh, we need to get them. I mean, like, for instance, the CFO, we need to get his he's really interested and wants to be involved, and or procurement, making sure that the procurement's involved early so they know they can tee them up. So in every company there is a particular barrier or a key stakeholder that you need to get, and so identifying that, it seems to be critical.
Finance can be a very strong partner. I mean, I would highly recommend the compensation folks to work hand in hand with their finance team, especially, when finance is looking to the HR or comp team for information so they could do budgeting. The more you can be in sync with one another, the better off and the better process you'll have. You won't have these issues. Well, finance has one number, we have another number. They're looking at it this way, we're looking at it that way. I mean, those are the stuff that can just, soak up so many hours.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really key for that point person, whoever that may be, that rallies all the other stakeholders in place, to have the authority and being able to have that choice, to have that, to be comfortable to say no when they need to say no, and be comfortable to say, okay, well, we'll engage you in this way. So with that, they really have to have that ability to do so. I think we've been working I've worked with clients in the past, in other roles where, there would be a point person, and unfortunately they don't feel like they're empowered to do that. And with that, what happens is you get individuals coming in from various areas. Okay, let's bring these individuals in then because they're closer to this. And before you know it, you're dealing with a stakeholder population of like 20, 30, 40. And when you're trying to implement technology or a change, whatever that may be with a certain point of time, the more people you bring in and you try to build consensus, obviously the more time it takes, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, timing is really important. Have you ever engaged with a client and then find out that, oh wait, they're not right, they're not quite ready, or they haven't thought this through enough, or what are some of those things that come up that are problems or that you found?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, because there are clients that we have where they think they're ready and they say, yes, that's great. With that, we're ready to move forward with this. But in the back of their mind, they may not be ready, or they may not have, consistent processes or what have you, but they figured, well, you know what, that's okay. We'll figure it out as we go along. I think with that, it clearly comes out. I think what we said earlier on, technology, especially if it's technology that you're implementing, technology is unforgiving in that sense because you're building it to be consistent, right? And with that, if you aren't consistent, if you don't have consistent processes or what have you, or if you are the type of organization that actually works on, accommodating all the exceptions, that'll clearly come out, right? So how do we go about doing that? Well, I think it's just more so just talking with our clients to say, well, this is what we can do, and let's move the dial. We may not be able to move the dial as large or as wide as or as ahead as you'd want it to, but let's move it in baby steps, because I think it's easier if we can do that rather than move and jump over to point B only to find out that we have to unravel everything. And that's a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of effort to do that, only to go back in a different way, right? So
It's a great opportunity to examine actually, the processes in place in an organization. So much of it often is, oh, we've always done it this way and it works fine. And then when you go to automate it, you say, what? This is so complicated and convoluted.
That's an interesting point there, because there are, and this happens, and I'm guilty of this too, because I have to say, I don't have a technology background, but over the years, I've been able to appreciate what is required from a technology point of view. I think dealing with some clients who don't have any technology background, I think their thoughts are, okay, well, we want this process in technology. We just want it replicated in there. But even if it's a small, automation, or if not a transformation, there's still an amount of change that needs to happen, because when you're automating something, with that, it can't necessarily be automated in the same way, because you're accounting for, and you're accounting for some human nuances and processes that you can't replicate in technology. So really, that's a really important point. But I do encounter that in a number of client implementations, not necessarily recently, but definitely in the past.
Well, I imagine you come across your clients with processes that seem to be kind of strange or outdated in some aspects because of the constrictions of their old process.
Yes.
So do you help them or guide them through the updating that, or finding the better way, or the so forth? I mean, how do you typically engage clients in that regard?
Yeah, and I think we're talking about some legacy systems, right? Where you've got some legacy processes that are really hard to unwind, and because they've been working with them for so long, they're so entrenched and really indoctrinated into that organization, where even if they want to change, they don't really change, even though they want to, right? I think that it really depends on a case-by-case basis, because there are some who, and again, it really comes back to the sponsors that are driving the initiative. If individuals say, no, we got to change this, and these are the steps we're going to take, and we're giving you, authority to do, to move forward here, or in whatever way, then I think you're more successful, because obviously they'll be there to help, move through any type of roadblocks. However, you've got sponsors out there that are saying, yeah, we're willing to change, go ahead and do it. And just, they leave you alone, you say, just do it. Obviously you won't be as successful, right? Yeah. So with that, I mean, there's all these other nuances as well to consider, but I think it does start with the top in terms of sponsorship. and how you structure your initiative, right? So
one of the biggest things I've found in clients with a mind block when they implement a new system like this is that a lot of times when they've been working with spreadsheets for forever, and they've scaled and scaled and scaled to the point where they're ready to blow up, right? What they do is they start taking those decisions higher up in the organization because they simply can't cut the spreadsheets 5 million different ways, and so they get in the mindset that the only people that can do make compensation recommendations are the business heads, or at that very high level. So do you often find yourself trying to influence them to push it back into the organization, those decisions?
Absolutely, absolutely. And then you get a whole slew of different responses. Obviously, it's who you talk to and who your contact is. Again, if that contact or that project lead or initiative lead, if they have the authority and are empowered to actually make those decisions, you'll see that you're more successful in getting that done versus those individuals that, perhaps maybe they're in that role, and with that, it's something that they do at the side of their desk. They don't have time to devote to it, you won't be as successful. So you have to really gauge that. And there are different approaches to it, obviously, and obviously there's different timelines to realize and seeing through any type of results. But the best way is really working with, or the ideal situation, obviously, is working with an individual who has that authority and are empowered to actually make those decisions and push up and manage up, rather, to manage the management's expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So once we decided that we're ready to look at software solutions, what should we be looking at when we consider different providers?
Yeah, I think you have to look at your entire HR ecosystem, technology ecosystem. Like, are you already involved, or are you already embedded with a large sort of technology provider? And if you are, what sort of aspects of HR are you trying to automate? Are you automating, let's say, a very complex compensation system, whereby, let's say, large providers may not have the opportunity or the ability to actually manage or address? Are you, wanting to just roll out total rewards? You have to think about what are you really looking to change here? And then with that, there are a number of different approaches. There are some organizations that say, we'd love to just stay with one technology provider because it makes it simple. Nowadays, though, and we're looking at, more often than not, we're looking at, companies looking at best in breed solutions to actually hook on to their large technology provider, because with that, the large technology provider, even though they like to be all things to all people, they aren't, right? So with that, and if there is someone out there that is, then I'd love to meet them, because definitely I haven't seen a large technology provider that can be all things to all people or all companies. But I think the best practice or the best approach is taking a look at what they have in their system and look at the best in breeds and offered in various areas to look how it can sort of bolt on or connect with that system.
Yeah, those integrations seem to be the hot thing of the past few years. I mean, having a system that can easily integrate with other systems and so forth. So CompTrak, when you think about what your clients are doing, what kind of systems are they connecting to CompTrak as part of that integration?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, we have a number of clients on Workday, ADP, SuccessFactors or SAP. So in terms of the full gamut, we have also some that are in some of the that are connected to some of the smaller providers, Fusion. The name escapes me, but in any case, some of the smaller providers, not just the large ones. So really, it's just understanding, how do they connect? How do those systems connect with other systems through APIs, or maybe they don't, and they have, what we have to do is just do download and sort of an upload into CompTrak. We've done both. Obviously, APIs are probably are preferred because it's automated. But we're finding a whole slew of different options depending on the vendor.
But as far as broad categories, I mean, we have those systems that are connecting with your tool are typically, like, of course, a human capital management type tool that are in payroll.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have benefit integrations, you have
That's great.
performance management, right? Performance management integration.
Management. Absolutely. And then, of course, with that, depending on, because of the services that we offer, we also have other feeds that are connected with us, such as feeds for FX rates, especially if especially if we have individuals that have our equity management tool. We have FX rates. We have some that, maybe connect with some of our shareholder sort of, I don't know why, but the names escapes me, but
compliance
and shareholder, that's right, shareholder and compliance sort of providers. So with that, it really depends on what module that we work with them.
And so, we started off the conversation talking about reward statements and so forth, but I imagine in that same line, you can put out different types of award statements, such as, for bonus or stock or whatever it may be.
Promotion letters.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think one of the things that we're seeing is for total reward statements is, connections to health and wellness providers, connections to, obviously some videos or clips that the company would like to showcase and to display to their employees. Onboarding systems.
Yeah, so if we could just hold on there real quick, because you're talking about videos and you brought this up again, because a lot of people out there, when they're thinking of total reward statements, they're thinking about a piece of paper, right? And you're talking about a portal that is both on a computer and mobile, that may have a lot of different interaction videos and so forth. What does the new total reward statement look like?
Yeah, no, it's really versatile. Absolutely. Yes, I should have been a bit more specific earlier on. Definitely the online statement is so versatile. I mean, it can consist of not just your total rewards and listing of your sort of traditional, bonus, merit, and all that other good stuff, but it really can talk about messaging about your company, messaging from top executives. It could connect to health and wellness providers. And I think we're seeing a lot of that now, right? You're seeing a lot of these health and wellness providers, I think Better Up or Headspace or what have you, where they're being, it's good to connect to that, because you're talking about your total rewards altogether. It's talking about perhaps maybe other rewards as well. You've got like, I don't know, we've got a company here called Achievers that actually has sort of employee rewards there that have points that you assign your employees for, doing a good job or what have you. It's linking to those types of things as well. And that's the tremendous upside that people realize with implementing total rewards, an online portal for their employees. And I think that's why we're seeing that there's such an interest in that, with the whole acceleration with, this pandemic. It's obviously accelerated. Everyone's thinking about sort of digitizing HR and how can you offer it a more sort of online experience. Total rewards is the one area which is the most, probably the most popular and probably the easiest in order to implement, and has tremendous upside.
I would imagine also having all the data consolidated and consistent in one place lends itself to a lot of analytics that before would be horrible to try and put together.
Absolutely, because we're not only talking about sort of total rewards and how and the benefits to their employees, but in the back end too, to your point, when we're consolidating all this information for the HR comp team, HR consultants, you've got all this rich information that's housed in one area, whereas before, as we were talking earlier on, you've got multiple spreadsheets being owned by multiple individuals in multiple formats. So you have that all consistent, and you're able to actually conduct analytics and provide and see different types of insights that you weren't able to see before. I just, a true story, I'm dating myself. Even before, when I was in HR, I was in compensation. I had a compensation role a while ago. And this is before HR technology or any type of technology was in there. So I only had Excel or even, dare I say, Lotus 1-2-3. Does anyone remember that? Now I'm really dating myself. So with that, the ability to provide or glean any type of information from all those data, all those data elements from the various spreadsheets literally took me a week.
Mhm.
Whereas
Yeah.
when you consolidate it in a system, it now takes what? Maybe 15 minutes, maybe less than that, because it's already housed there, right? And you've got so much rich analytics now that are being offered through various, through HR technology that, you know, you just, how can you say no to that? I mean, that is
Yeah.
just a quick win in terms of, you know, making sure that you're focusing on the right things rather than, you know, focusing on sort of the labor intensive, you know, scrubbing of data, et cetera.
Yeah, I think that's what, when that's one of the big wins that I often tell my clients. I mean, if you're working with Excel spreadsheets, I mean, it's not just data integrity and the administration of cutting spreadsheets up, but you know, there's the regulation around equal pay and fair pay and, you know, minimum wage in different places. You know, having some analytics in place so we can quickly tell if you're violating rules or anywhere across the company or across the globe nowadays is quite important. And so yeah, this is, it can save millions and millions.
Absolutely. And think about it. In the past, when you had to sort of generate some information on the fly, you know, that took what, days?
Yeah.
And now you really can just, you know, if you preset some criteria to generate a report, it can take literally seconds.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, it also transformed the whole nature of the HR and compensation function from being, you know, pure administrators and just doing basic, you know, analysis to being able to be predictive and forecast.
Right.
That's right. And really, at the end of the day, you know, you're bringing this information to the decision makers or to the businesses, and they're thinking, wow, you know, I mean, they haven't even thought about that, right? So that's why you're seeing a lot of sort of conversation, really good conversation now about some of the such as pay inequity and you know, and not just with regard to male versus female, but some of the intersectionality amongst them, you know, different types of, I know, maybe other diversity folks, you know, individuals who are disabled, veterans. It's really quite something.
And one of the things that Howard, you and I have talked about in the past is that there's a lot of comp professionals out there that are reluctant to get away from their spreadsheets. It's kind of a strange thing. I know this is a passion of yours, Howard. And but the thing that I think that they need to realize is that, you know, they may be able to do Excel wizardry, right? And they're comfortable with those analytics, and they can build these cool spreadsheets and reports and so forth. But our customers, the executives, HR leadership and so forth, that have come from other companies that know that this can be done in 5 minutes. Hey, send me that report in 5 minutes before this meeting. And you're sitting here going, oh my gosh, I got to build this spreadsheet. There's no way they can. The reality is that that other place that executive came from, they can do it. And so if comp professionals aren't taking this seriously, aren't thinking about implementing these systems so that they can perform at the degree that their peers are performing, it's a serious problem. I think that it's something that, you know, you have to influence to get a system in place.
And you know, where else do you have a function that, you know, is a major expense for an organization, where multiple studies have shown 85 to 90% of spreadsheets have embedded errors that could be fatal to an organization?
Yeah, isn't that something when you actually articulate it, it is quite remarkable, because pay is so personal to everyone. And with that, the fact that there's a number of individual or companies right now that are still working off spreadsheets, and there's a lot of human intervention in there, to your point, a lot of risk for error. It's not surprising that right now they're looking at automating that, right?
Yeah. I mean, when I was in working in-house and in corporate, and just the amount of stress that I would feel as a comp consultant and putting something together, getting ready to send an email out, and I go, geez, if I send this to the wrong person, or if I made a mistake and I put an extra 0 on, I mean, I could be out of a job tomorrow, you know. It's like, and that's a lot of stress to carry around in day to day. I mean, it's to the point where, you know, gee, I wouldn't want to work for an employer that didn't have the right systems in place to protect me as an employee. So
that's very true. Yeah, very true.
So I know we've talked about a lot of cool things. We are approaching the top of the hour here. Bella, tell us about the cool things that are coming out in the future. I mean, I mean, the big buzz around systems like this and is, you know, AI and so forth. I mean, what do you think is going to be the next thing for these systems as they evolve?
Yeah, that is another $1 million question, because as we mentioned before, there's just so many different directions that systems can take. I think, if anything, you know, you're right, AI is one. Obviously, you know, and I don't profess to know everything about AI. There's so many papers out there and webinars on there. But for some of the ones that I have attended, you can say that there are some pros and cons to it, right? So, you know, it's really whatever feature is being pulled out there, or whatever trend or what have you. It's really what works for your company, right? Because AI is great, but does it work for your company? I don't know, right? So with that, I think one of the other things that I'm looking at and seeing is obviously sort of diversity, inclusion. Dee and I think with, you know, society and what's happening in society over the past past year, you know, it's really shined a light on sort of, you know, um, pay equity and inequity. So with that, I think you see a lot of that. I mean, it's been around. I mean, obviously, when I was, you know, in HR as well, I mean, we did talk about that and we looked at that, but obviously it was very, you know, sort of very one note in terms of male versus female, et cetera. Now you've got all these other sort of considerations, male versus female, Black versus white, you know, male versus female, that type of thing, the intersectionality between that. So, you know, I think you're seeing a lot more because of the fact that we've got the ability to create richer and generate richer analytics. You have the ability to provide that additional insight. You know, again, there's all these other things that we can go into, but I see top of mind is just the DE&I, AI. I think there's also a thought about productizing things that haven't been productized before, such as APIs, you know, and those are application, I can't remember what that stands for, but APIs in terms of connection between the two systems, they're looking at productizing that, whereas before they never did that, right? So one of the other things too as well that I'm seeing is, and I think we talked about that, is just utilizing the total reward statement for something more than just total rewards, right? It's really another communication vehicle for companies to use for their employees. And I can see that being built out a little bit further as we move along, especially now, since depending when, you know, even though the pandemic and we're getting ourselves back to normal, I do see there are going to be a percentage of individuals that would still like to have some sort of work from home arrangement, be it 3 times a week or 2 times a week, what have you. I don't think that's going to go away.
Yeah, agreed. So I know that, so I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll here. If those that are on the call here with us, if you would like to go through a demo on CompTrak or speak about these issues with Howard or Bella or myself, I mean, feel free to go ahead and sign up using this poll. And if you happen to be on another platform, LinkedIn or Facebook, I mean, you can send us just a direct message to one of those platforms, and we'll be happy to take that, schedule a meeting for you. So Bella, tell us a little bit about how our listeners can find out more about CompTrak. I mean, and more about you and your services that you provide.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for putting that page on. There's links to our website, CompTrak. We have a lot of really good white papers, topical white papers, as well as blogs that you can read up. We have our contact information as well. You know, feel free to reach out to myself or to our founders. Happy to, you know, provide a demo or have a chat with anyone who's interested in you know, implementing technology in whatever that may be it total rewards, if not full compensation system. So definitely you can find all the information there.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Bella, for sharing your knowledge with us today. It was a great conversation. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. I think it's been really interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing how things pan out from a technology point of view, HR technology point of view as we move forward.
Mhm.
And
Great.
congratulations again on all the accolades that you've been getting at CompTrak.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you once again for your time, and you have a great week.
You
Thank
too.
you, everyone.
Okay. Take
Thanks,
care, everyone.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.